Asexuality. What is it? That's the question at the heart of a 6-part HuffPost series exploring the history of the asexual movement and addressing the challenges that community faces. The series reporter, Dominique Mossbergen, joins me to discuss it. Dominique, this is a lot of people don't know about asexuals. They don't even think of it in the spectrum of human sexuality. Can you just define it for us?
Well, it's a little difficult because there's a very broad definition that is used kind of generally, which I'll tell you now. But then within the community, different asexuals may identify differently. So just a caveat that this is a limited definition.
Yep.
But generally, it's basically a person who says that he or she does not feel sexually attracted to other people. Very basically.
Yep.
But there are asexuals who do feel romantic attraction towards other people, for example, and do get into sexual relationships. But we explore that more in this series. So,
how do they get into sexual relationships? Do they find them fulfilling, or is it usually the case that the sex is something that they have to kind of go through the motions of and endure in order to get the kind of romantic connection that they need?
Well, usually it's the latter. So, you know, it's very difficult, I think, and this is something that I got a lot of, or I heard a lot of, is that it's very difficult for asexual people to navigate in this very sexualized world that we live in. And so to be in a relationship with another person, oftentimes that person will need sex as part of the relationship. And that's normal and natural, and we would expect that.
So how do they commonly navigate that then? Is it that they have an open relationship in which the other romantic partner can actually get sex elsewhere? Or is it that they only date each other?
Right. I mean, that's a question that we bring up. I mean, it's very difficult because the asexual community is only really starting to come out now. It's a very new community. They've only started to kind of come together in the last decade or so, ever since the internet kind of boomed. And so they're only now starting to find each other online. There's, for instance, a new social media site called Facebook. It's the asexual version of Facebook. But again, that's very new. So stuff like that is very new. There are very few offline options for asexuals who want to meet each other, but I think that's slowly starting to happen. So in terms of navigating the world, I mean, I think the community is still trying to really figure that out. But for now, it really depends on the person. Some people say that they don't necessarily enjoy the sex with their sexual partners, but they'll do it and then therefore enjoy it because their partner's enjoying it, if you know what I mean. Sort of like a secondary happiness.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Interesting. Yeah. To what extent are they a part of the LGBTQPRS community, if at all, and to what extent are they distinct from it?
Well, I think that's a big debate in both communities. I think a lot of asexuals, I'm sure some would disagree with me, but I think by and large the asexual community would like to be recognized by the LGBT community. Insofar as they consider themselves outside, you know, the heteronormative model of human sexuality. And I think, you know, the asexual community feels like being part of the LGBT community would give them sort of validity in the wider world and would help in terms of, you know, battling the discrimination that they feel they face. And the LGBT community in turn has been quite receptive. I think some groups have been receptive, but there also has been some pushback where people, some LGBT groups feel that asexuals shouldn't, you know, don't really have anything to fight for, that they're fighting, you know, like the right to not have sex is not really fighting for anything. It's kind of the opposite. It's like a negation of.
Well, I mean, if you're a disenfranchised minority that gets criticised or excluded from what is considered to be normal, then I suppose you could be fighting on that basis, right? Even if you're not having sex. What can we expect from the rest of the series, if anything? What should we be looking for?
Well, just to answer that very quickly,
yeah.
I mean, I think that's part of the problem is that I think a lot of people don't realize that there is discrimination, that asexuals do feel discriminated against. One really interesting thing that we look at this week is a study that came out last year that shows that heterosexual people and people of all sexual stripes are more likely to discriminate against asexuals than any other sexual minority. So they found that straight people are more likely to discriminate against asexuals than gay people, which was like a really surprising statistic. And very few people realize the sort of challenges that the asexual community faces, which is kind of why we wanted to look into it.
Great. Well, thanks for doing the series. Let him in the club, I say. Let him in the club. Thanks for joining us a lot, Dominique. Stay tuned. Plenty more coming up, including Taylor Swift's new look.